You're on a first date. It's going fine. Not great, not terrible, solidly a 6 out of 10. And then, with zero warning and zero permission from you, your jaw drops open, your eyes start watering, and for 4 full seconds you look like you're either dying or deeply unimpressed by their personality. You just yawned. In front of a stranger, who is now yawning back at you. Congratulations! You've both just performed the single most ancient, least understood involuntary behavior in the human body. On a date, for no reason either of you can explain. This isn't rare. In fact, it's the reason newsroom yawns have become a whole genre of viral video. A news anchor yawns live on air, mid-sentence, mid-headline. 90 seconds later, so does the co-anchor. Then the meteorologist. Then, allegedly, a decent chunk of the couch-bound audience at home. Nobody scheduled it. Nobody agreed to it. It just spread. Like gossip. Except the punchline is nothing, and everybody still passes it along. So here's the actual question. Why does watching someone else's mouth open make your mouth open? You're not tired because they're tired. You don't even know if they're tired. And yet your body reacts like it received a group text it never signed up for. Quick fact before we go further, because it changes how you read literally the rest of this video. Not everyone catches yawns. Depending on the study, somewhere between 45% and 60% of people will yawn after watching someone else do it. That means nearly half the population can watch you yawn directly in their face and feel absolutely nothing. If you've ever yawned dramatically at a friend expecting sympathy and gotten a blank stare back, that's not them being cold. That might be biology. We'll come back to that because it gets a lot more interesting, and a little more concerning, later. Let's start with the leading explanation, because it's the one that makes contagious yawning sound almost noble. Mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are brain cells that fire both when you do something and when you watch someone else do that same thing. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between I am yawning and I am watching a yawn happen. It runs a kind of background simulation, quietly rehearsing the action as if it were your own. Basically, the neurological version of screen mirroring your friend's phone without asking. Researchers actually tested this directly. They put people in an fMRI scanner, showed them videos of yawning faces versus neutral faces, and watched a specific region tied to the mirror neuron system light up, specifically during the yawns. Your brain isn't just observing, it's quietly participating, and this system doesn't come online at birth. Contagious yawning typically doesn't show up in kids until around age 4, and that's not a coincidence. Age 4 is roughly when children develop what psychologists call theory of mind, the realization that other people have their own separate thoughts, feelings, and inner experiences that aren't just extensions of your own. Before that milestone, a toddler can watch you yawn all day and feel nothing, the same way that stranger on the train feels nothing when you yawn at them. Catching a yawn, weirdly, requires your brain to first understand that other people are, in fact, people, which is why the empathy angle keeps showing up in every study on this topic. Contagious yawning isn't evenly distributed, it clusters around closeness. Family and close friends catch each other's yawns more than acquaintances do, and acquaintances catch them more than total strangers do. Basically, your yawn is a low-effort, zero-cost signal of social bonding, and how contagious you find it is a rough gauge of how emotionally plugged in you are to the person doing it. It's the biological equivalent of liking someone's Instagram story within 4 seconds of them posting it. Nobody asked you to. You just did, because you're invested. Here's where it gets a little uncomfortable. If contagious yawning tracks empathy, then not catching yawns should track the opposite. And it does. Multiple studies have found that people who score higher on psychopathy traits are significantly less likely to yawn contagiously. Kids and adults with autism spectrum traits also show reduced contagion, though for a different underlying reason tied to social processing rather than a lack of care. None of this is a diagnostic test. One blank stare during a yawn doesn't mean your situationship is secretly a sociopath. But it is a genuinely strange, mildly unsettling data point. Your body has apparently been running a low-stakes empathy test on every person you've ever yawned in front of, and most of us never noticed. It's not just a human thing either, and this is where dogs enter the chat because of course they do. A study out of the University of Tokyo had dogs watch their owners yawn versus a total stranger yawn. The dogs caught the yawn far more often when it came from their own owner. Same test, same movement, completely different response, based entirely on who was doing it. Which means your dog isn't just physically reacting to a mouth opening, it's registering on some level that it's specifically your mouth. That's either extremely sweet or extremely embarrassing, depending on how many times you've yawned in front of your dog while ignoring it for your phone. Now for the twist that breaks the whole it's all about empathy theory. Fetuses yawn too, and they don't catch it from anyone. 4D ultrasound studies have shown fetuses yawning in the womb starting well before birth, opening their mouths in a full, sustained yawn pattern distinct from just chewing or stretching. But researchers followed it up by showing pregnant women yawning videos and watching, in real time, whether the fetus yawned back. It didn't. Fetal yawning appears completely unrelated to contagion. It looks more like a developmental milestone, a sign the nervous system is maturing on schedule, not a social reflex at all. So somewhere between the womb and age 4, yawning quietly switches jobs. It starts as pure biology and graduates into social behavior, right around the same time you develop the ability to understand that other people exist as their own separate main characters. So if contagious yawning is social, what is regular non-contagious yawning actually for? This is where the competing theory comes in, and it makes your brain sound a lot less like a caring social organ and a lot more like an overheating laptop. The thermoregulatory theory, mostly developed by researcher Andrew Gallup, argues that yawning exists to cool your brain down. The idea: your brain runs slightly warmer right before a yawn. The deep inhale of a yawn pulls in cooler air, and that air acts like a built-in cooling fan, dropping brain temperature right after. It's not a metaphor. Researchers actually tracked brain temperature in rats in real time and found it spikes right before a yawn and drops right after, like clockwork. Basically, your brain is out here running background apps until it overheats, and a yawn is the involuntary reboot. This theory also explains something that should not check out at first. Yawning has a seasonal pattern. Researchers tracked yawn frequency across winter and summer and found people yawn significantly more in cold weather than in blistering heat. The opposite of what you'd expect if yawning were just about being tired, since heat makes everyone sluggish. But it makes perfect sense under the cooling theory. On a scorching summer day, the air outside is already close to your body temperature, so pulling it into your lungs does nothing to cool your brain down. It's like trying to cool your laptop with a fan blowing hot air. Below a certain outside temperature, yawning simply stops being useful, and your brain, quietly, efficiently, stops bothering. And here's the detail that turns this video into a trap. You don't even need to see a yawn to catch one. Simply reading about yawning, thinking about yawning, or hearing a description of a yawn is enough to trigger it in a meaningful chunk of people. Which means if you've made it this far without yawning even once, you are either part of the immune 40.55%, or you're lying to yourself right now. Either way, no judgment. Your empathy score is between you and your brainstem. Zoom out far enough and the whole thing starts to look less like a glitch and more like old, quiet teamwork. In social animals, lions, chimpanzees, wolves, dogs, even some birds, yawning tends to spread through the group right before a shift in activity, right before everyone gets up to move, or right before everyone settles down to rest. One leading idea is that contagious yawning evolved as a low-cost way to synchronize a group's alertness. Everyone's internal clock quietly nudged onto the same schedule, without a single word exchanged, long before anyone had language to say, "Hey, should we get going?" A lion yawning in the middle of a pride isn't dozing off mid-conversation. It might be sending the oldest group chat message there is. "We're about to move. Get ready." Which brings it back to that date. You didn't yawn because you were bored, and you didn't yawn because you're rude. Somewhere underneath the small talk, your ancient, overheating, pattern-matching brain looked at another person's face, ran its 200,000-year-old social software, and quietly decided this person was worth syncing up with. It's not a bug. It's one of the oldest forms of connection your body knows how to run. It's just never bothered to update the interface. If you've made it this far without your jaw betraying you even once, Either your empathy score needs a second opinion, or you're exactly the kind of person who'd enjoy the next video, where a completely different piece of obviously normal human behavior turns out to have an equally strange evolutionary backstory hiding underneath it.